While the Cincinnati Bengals did win the game, the story of Thursday Night Football was a very scary moment with Tua Tagovailoa, where it looked like he was concussed. We're going to talk about that moment. We also have Dr. Kerina Maharaja. She's a doctor of physical therapy. She's going to be talking to us about what she saw, her thoughts on it. And we're going to talk about the dangers that he could have really been in, because that was a truly scary moment. We'll talk about that, a lot more. Of course, all of our Week 4 picks here on the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with my friend and co-host, your boy Q. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I'm Chris Carter, here with your boy Q and our special guest, Dr. Kerina Maharaja of Physical Therapy. If you're a fan of Locked On Steelers, you've heard her before. She gave us a lot of great insight onto the situation of TJ Watt when he got first injured. As always, you can find this show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please hit the like button on this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday to Friday episodes here on the Locked On NFL podcast. As always, you can find this show there, but also our episode today is brought to you by Brightco Insurance. You can find comprehensive but not expensive jewelry insurance at Brightco. Be sure to go to bright.co/locked on, and you can get affordable jewelry insurance for as low as $5 per month. Again, that's bright.co/locked on. All right. That being said, Q, how you doing?
I'm doing good, except for I look like I'm about 4 foot tall in this video that we're doing. I think you didn't compromise something with me, man. I
told you, Kerina, you heard me before the show say, Q, raise your camera up, make it work.
I did, and I think you still compromised. Now I got to do it again on camera while we're doing it. And that's not a big question. That's terrible.
Or maybe I'm just taller than both of you.
That's Kerina is like 7 feet tall. I don't know if you can tell from there. But anyways, Q, thank you so much. Kerina, how you doing? Karina's my good friend. She's a doctor. She's a very smart individual. She gives us a
Kerina, that you got to put up with that.
She's putting up with you. We were doing fine until you messed things up, Q. Come on, man. We're supposed to be a professional out here.
We are. That's why I told her I apologize that she has to be friends with you.
Oh, man, that hurts.
I go way back.
Yes.
We've gone on trips together. We lived in the same city for a while. We've been through a lot.
Bless you. Bless your soul. I like you already.
All right, guys. We do have to get to a serious topic, though. And it happened to Tua Tagovailoa. Again, the Bengals won the game, but I'm pretty sure I can speak for everyone here. When that moment happened, when his head hit the turf and you saw his hands freeze up, it was terrifying. And I was like, I don't care what else happens in this game.
Right.
That just, you immediately empathize for whatever he's going through, whatever anyone that loves him, cares about him is going through. It was terrifying. And, I think I can speak for everybody to say it was a scary moment. I don't think anyone has to look up what happened because Amazon just kept playing it 1,000 times over.
They sure did. They did. That was a lot, man. They replayed it so many times, and, it got uncomfortable, but Kerina, it happens so quickly. As soon as he hit, like Chris said, he gets sacked, he hits the turf, and all of a sudden it's like his hands immediately clench up and freeze up, and I didn't know what in the world was going on. What, as a therapist, what were you thinking when you saw that?
Yeah, so to give it some comparison, like if you guys have ever hit your funny bone and you feel like a burning or a tingling, like a nerve feeling going down your arm, that's what it looks like he was feeling, but on a much obviously larger level. It seems like he tweaked his neck when he hit it back, and a shock just went down his back, spine. They're calling it a head and neck injury, and the spine, that's the home to all of our nerves, our spinal cord, right? So that shock was felt there. It's protected by the bones, but still, it's a really sensitive area. And I was just really, really scared that we were going to see something similar that happened with Shazier against the same team years ago. But, we're getting new updated information that's looking more positive.
Just to mention that information, we did hear from the Amazon broadcast that Tua Tagovailoa does have feeling in all his extremities. He also it said that it was expected he's going to be released from the hospital and be able to travel with the team home to Miami after that game. Definitely a blessing to hear that after how scared that looked. And I mean, just the look of his hands, his arms just locked above his body. I mean, you don't have to be a doctor to be like, that's not normal, but still. Yeah. It was a scary moment, just like last week was a scary moment. You know, everyone also saw against the Bills, his head hits the turf, even when it looked like harder than it did this week. And then as soon as he gets up, he's trying to jog, he's trying to walk it off. And like most athletes do, that's what they're taught to do. But as he was trying to jog, and this is last week, not even last week, 4 days ago, right. You know, before this game, he stumbles and falls on his face and then picks himself back up, and it looks like he lost consciousness, you know, for a second there, and immediately everyone's like, oh no, he needs to get checked out, goes in the locker room, but comes back out at halftime, and the Dolphins won the game. Tua seemed fine, I guess. The Dolphins said he cleared concussion protocol. He didn't have a concussion, but there were a lot of eyebrows being raised at that, being like, man, that guy hit his head, and then he looked like he lost, he lost, you know, control of his body for a second there. As a doctor, you know, they indicated that he wasn't in concussion protocol, Kerina. But like, when you saw that, what concerns did that bring for you? Like, was that something that's like that can be brushed up? Like, okay, maybe it was just a slip and fall, or was there a moment where you, as a doctor, you would have been like, no, I need to see something else from him?
So if you look at the NFL's concussion protocol, it's a 5-part, 5 steps that are very thorough. That if I'm working in the NFL and I'm supposed to be testing these players, I'm not getting that done in 10 minutes and sending them back on the field, right? Those 5 steps are not going to take 10 minutes. It's going to take a week at least. And I think that they went in, they took him, they did a little verbal, visual balance assessment, and they said, you know what? He's not showing immediate signs, any acute signs. He looks good. He probably passed their verbal test at that point. And they sent him back out.
Wow, so that's crazy.
Incredible. Yeah, no, I mean, that's incredible. And that's kind of going back to the days of where there wasn't the concussion protocol, right? Where there was, hey, how do you feel? Or get a little smelly.
How many fingers am I holding up?
Okay, good. 1. Okay, you're good. Then, you know, you can go back out there. So, you know, let's just, I don't want to assume anything, but I mean, clearly he was concussed on Thursday night, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Medical professional there, and I'm going to trust that medical professional, whatever their, you know, opinion was. But if you look at the 5-step protocol, the last step is going from your in-house doctor to an out-house doctor. You know, you're not doing that in 10 minutes in the tunnel. No. Right. So, you know, that's the concern that I have.
So as far as, you know, what happened on Sunday to what happened on Thursday, regardless of what they're classifying it as, that's 2 pretty traumatic things in a matter of less than a week. How scary is that just for the body in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think the turnaround time for players to be playing a Sunday night game to a Thursday night game, that's a problem already. And then you're adding injuries that you maybe had 3 days to clear. That your body is already under a lot of stress and duress. And then if you have any pre-existing injuries, you're not giving yourself any time to recover. So you're already in a worse place on that next game.
Kerina, I hear you entirely. Yeah. I've always thought Thursday night football was too much. Forget a concussion, just your general body with how physical that game is. It's so important to give it time to recharge and to give it time to heal. So that's definitely a concern. My last question for you, and I think you might have another one, but what should fans be looking for this week? Like, what are the things that you want to hear? If you just want to hear, hey, Tua's fine, like he'll be good to live his life, and maybe even play football again at some point, and not have to worry about reoccurring concussions.
Yeah, if you guys remember back to Shazier's injury, we didn't hear that night about if he had feeling, anything like that. And tonight they're giving us that reassurance. He has feeling, he's moving his limbs. Those are the 2 things I was waiting to hear. When they took him off of the field, they had him in a stabilized gurney where they didn't even take his helmet off because they didn't know the state of his spine. So what they probably did some tests, some imaging to confirm that the spine is stable and he can move, and he probably had feeling in all of his fingers and toes. And that's a really good sign that, you know, the injury is not as extensive as what we may have thought it would have been.
You know, Kerina, I just had one more quick question I wanted to ask you, and it's just in general. I mean, This has been, as I mentioned before, a couple pretty traumatic injuries, a couple days apart.
Yeah.
For Tua in general, I mean, shouldn't he just at least take some time off, regardless of how you diagnose this? Shouldn't he take some time off to make sure everything is as healed as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I was, thinking about this tonight, and as much as it is up to the team doctors, coaches, staff, it's also up to you to advocate for yourself. I tell my patients that every day. You need to learn to advocate for yourself, and these players need to advocate for themselves. If he did not feel 100% going into today, it's not only a detriment to him, it's a detriment to his team. And maybe if he knew earlier that he didn't feel 100% going in today, they could have prepared in a different way, and he would have been better taken care of. I don't know what the outcome of this second injury is going to be, but God forbid there's something, life altering, life changing. Making that decision to take tonight's game off versus saving the rest of his body for the rest of his life, you have to sit down and weigh that. And it's up to the players to do that as well.
It feels like to me that it's something that could all of a sudden become reoccurring, right? I mean, it's almost like you crack one layer and then there's another layer. Then you crack that layer and it's almost like they get weaker and weaker and weaker. Is that something that's a possibility?
Exactly. Think about your ankle. Even he's had ankle injuries. They worry about him re-injuring his ankle, and it's because it's already weak. And so, his head is now probably endured a lot more trauma than any normal person who's not in a high-level sport would. And every time he gets another injury to that same spot, it's going to be a little bit worse.
That's the stuff that's really scary there. And you know what, Kerina, I think you bring up a great point, with players advocating for themselves and the position that they're in, because you know what, Tua's trying to prove to the world. People saying, oh, he can't play quarterback. He wants to prove, one, he can play, but two, he wants to make sure that his next contract is going to be a big one. And he wants to, and he feels, and an athlete, your competitor, you're out there, you feel like you want to go every single time. You don't want anyone to tell you no, but that's the delicate balance that you're in here, where sometimes you need medical professionals to be like, hey, my man, like, you gonna live to fight another day, but you might not if you don't take your time and come back from this 100%.
That's what makes athletes sometimes some of the hardest patients, is they're so driven. And, I love that in some senses, but in the other sense, it's like, I need to be very firm with them on when they need to stop. And there needs to be a better advocacy team plan, personalized training for this league.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dr. Kerina Maharaja, ladies and gentlemen. Kerina, thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On NFL podcast. It was great hearing your insight. Kerina, let people know they can find you, follow you, and just get more of like your insights, or just see what you're up to sometimes.
Thanks to Chris, I'm now on Twitter at K Maharaja, and then on Instagram, same name, at K Maharaja. So you guys can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Not many people have my name, so you'll find it.
Absolutely. Kerina, thank you so much. Y'all stay right there, because we're coming right back in a second here. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Brightco. This episode brought to you by Brightco Jewelry and Watch Insurance. Sometimes you may have bought that expensive engagement ring, that expensive watch, jewelry, whether it's lost or stolen. Sometimes something crazy happens to it, and you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? But here's where Brightco comes in hand as a jewelry insurance company that can insure you for as low as $5 a month. Sometimes, if you've ever been watching that YouTube video where a guy drops his engagement ring, it falls down a sewer, it falls off of a helicopter, off of a boat, something ridiculous. But the point is, those guys are out thousands of dollars, and then they're being humiliated on the internet. Well, Brightco can't help with the internet humiliation, but they can help with your hard-earned money that you spent on that ring. Go to bright.co/locked on right now, and you'll see some of the insane videos I'm talking about, but you'll also learn about the insurance that you can get for as cheap as $5 a month on expensive jewelry. Again, that's bright.co/locked on for all your jewelry insurance concerns. Back here on the Locked On NFL podcast, it's Chris Carter. It's your boy Q. Q, we had a nice friendly guest this time. I didn't have to stare at just your face all night. So I say,
find her on Twitter. I'm still trying to find her on Twitter.
We're gonna find her on Twitter, Dr. Kerina Maharaja. I think it's at K Maharaja.
It is.
Maharaja.
You said not a lot of people have her name, but there's like 25 people with her name.
Yeah, there were a lot of there were a bunch, but I think she did it in a way where we were able to find her. Dang, I can't find her right now, and that's crazy. That's crazy. We gonna find her. We gonna get her name out there for y'all to get her on the show. But anyways, Q, let's keep rolling about this because I wanted to hear from a doctor the actual concerns there. That was a major concern there. That was a major injury that we witnessed there. And we ain't that technical. But what we can talk about is the state of the NFL and how this is happening. Q, I don't know about you, man. When he came out at halftime against the Bills, I was like, this sounds like a bad idea. And of course, he came out and threw like a fiery pass to start the second half. Right. And everyone forgot all about the injury. But, you see this on Thursday Night Football, and you just think, are you really putting the players first? Do you actually care about their safety? Right. And again, Thursday Night Football, it's sloppy football every week. It's not as much fun, and you're putting guys at danger, even when they don't have concussions. It makes me look at the NFL and say, like, guys, what are you doing? You need to prioritize these players a lot better than you do.
Yeah, and I look at the Dolphins in particular, and, because I look at the injury that he suffered on Sunday, and, I thought for sure that it was a concussion. And then I talked to my buddy John McClain, formerly of the Houston Chronicle, who's been covering the league for a very long time. And he said, Q, I actually had a back injury where I looked exactly like Tua. I just fell over just like he did and just almost looked punch drunk, really, and it looked like Tua was out of there. So he said, I've actually been in that same position because of my back. So I said, okay. But to me, the bigger question is Tua able to protect himself? Regardless if it's a back injury or a head
injury
or whatever the injury is he able to go out on that field on Thursday night and protect himself? And that, Chris, I don't think he is. And it just looked like even when he was trying to escape, and I'm not at all trying to put the blame on Tua, like, oh, no, escape quick enough. It just looked like everything was slow motion. It didn't look like he had the capability. Like maybe if it was his back was hurting so much that he wasn't able to, wiggle out of there or run. I mean, you know how it is when your back hurts.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Everything the same way that you normally would. So I think that there's a lot to go into looking into this. And I think the Dolphins need to do some self-searching as well, because if they sent that man out there and he wasn't actually able to protect himself in the ultimate game where you need to be able to protect yourself, that's a lot on them. Injuries are going to happen in the NFL. I get it. But, man, if you can't defend yourself and make sure you're okay, it's almost like in fighting, right? They won't let a boxer leave the corner unless he can defend himself. Once they stop defending himself, what do? They call the fight. It's over. So at some point, someone need to call the fight and say, Tua, it's over.
Right. And again, it brings up the worst. And, Dr. Kerina, she was absolutely right. Also, it's at Kerina, Karina _ Maharaja, Maharaja. So if you search that on Twitter, you should be able to find her and follow her. But she's a great person. I've learned a lot from her, and as you can see, she's a very smart individual. But again, back to this, man. Like there's parts of me that sit there and say, I get players pushing themselves out there, because the NFL is a very volatile league where 1 minute you're the best player in the league, next minute you're not, you're barely getting signed to any contracts, any deals, and it's rough on you. So I get players who want to push themselves back out there, but again, this seems like something that you'd at least have more time to prepare for, more time to handle if you didn't have to deal with Thursday Night Football. And maybe you're sitting in that situation and you're saying, like, hey, this is, we at least had more time to assess this, or he could have prepared himself more for that situation. But there's way too many questions. And it's things like this, even outside of just the obvious, the human decency part of it. A big part of what I've seen, the biggest thing that could endanger the NFL, the growing of football, are moments like that when you see an injury and people are just like, nope. And you see mothers think, like, not my child, I'm not going to let them play that game. Or people say, like, I'm not watching that anymore because that's terrifying. And I don't want to subject myself to that. The NFL has to find a way to protect those. And it can't just be bold rules like, oh yeah, we're just going to flag every penalty out there. We're just going to do this. No, you know what? don't have 17, game seasons. Don't extend seasons, make them longer. Give them more bye weeks. Find ways to give players more times to rest. Put more players on rosters so that guys could rest and the teams have more backups out there. Do things that aren't just going to be an easy cope over or cover over, or sweeping something under the rug without you paying any more money. Because I think that's what it comes down to, is they want to find a way to keep their model of how they make money going without changing up their plan and saying, hey, we did do something here.
Yeah, it's a fine line, man. It really is. It's like, okay, everyone loves football. It's king. We all know that. We also know that it's a very violent sport, and that one play you could be done for your career, right? And I don't know what the end result's going to be for Tua in this situation. We've seen many a player, and quarterbacks in particular, that had to call it quits because of too many concussions. And so I don't know what's going to happen with him. I feel like that he's very susceptible now moving forward to concussions and any other kind of bodily harm. And as Kerina pointed out, he's got the ankle. He had the hip coming into to the NFL as well. I mean, he's just really a banged up dude, and that's very unfortunate. I don't know what the NFL could do. Honestly, I really don't. They try to protect. They try to use different helmets. They try to change the rules. They try to protect quarterbacks, and still, I don't think that was a dirty play. That he
wasn't a dirty play.
So it's like it's almost like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I don't know what they can do, but you're right. There's mothers out there that say, no, I don't want my kids playing this sport. I'd rather them play flag football. I'd rather them do this, that, and the other. Go play baseball. It's just, I don't think it's going to ever go away. I don't think that, people are going to stop playing the game because it's so violent, but it's a harsh reality, man, that you could be done in one play, and you just never know when it's coming. So that's why I never get mad when these players get as much money as possible, because it could be over before they know it.
And that's the bottom line. When people complain because, such and such is holding out to get more money. Yeah, because you don't know if the next hit's going to put you out. Could put you out there like that. And I'm with you on that. And again, I'm not faulting the player for wanting to fight through it. And I'm not saying that this is easy. I'm not saying this is just a snap of the fingers. But what could be a snap of the fingers is the NFL saying, you know what? We'll just make another Monday Night Football game. You did it earlier this season. Instead of taking money off a Thursday night and giving these guys only 3 days rest to go into another game, let's just make it, hey, there's an extra Monday Night Football game, and that's how we'll make our extra prime time money. Because I get it, you want to make more money, but you got to stop doing it at the expense of the health of these players. I know players won't talk about it as much because they're just like trying to make their money. They're trying to make sure that they're not getting pointed at by the league and pointed out for saying anti-league things. But that someone needs to step in and stop this kind of stuff from happening. We hope that Tua Tagovailoa does continue to receive good news, that we, at least him going home, is a good sign. But we'll have to see how that plays out and everything there. Good news for the Bengals is that they won the game. Good news for the Dolphins that it looks like their quarterback isn't going to have to stay the night in the hospital. Right. But big win for the Bengals. They get back to 2-2. It was looking a little scary for them even after the fact.
Crazy though, Chris, that nobody even really knows like what happened in the game, how it shook out the game after the injury to Tua. That's all that mattered. The rest of the game, like I watched it. I watched the whole game, right, and still couldn't really tell you the intricacies and everything that happened, because in my mind, all I could think of and picture is Tua in those hands.
Yeah, it's all I could picture as well. And I was the same. I was, I'll tell you, I was in that same stadium. What was it? 5 years ago, when Ryan Shazier got paralyzed. I was in the press box, and I just remember seeing him go down. And then all of us, I just remember looking across all the Steelers beat writers and just everyone was just like, what? Why are we still here? Why do we, we don't feel like covering this game. And I remember about 15 minutes later, they resume play. He gets wheeled off in a stretcher. You don't know if he's ever going to walk again.
Right.
And you're sitting there thinking, what does it matter if the Steelers come back and win this game? Who cares at this point? That's not, and I think that's where a lot of people, went to if you were, sitting at home and in the moment. I think that's where a lot of people who care about Tua Tagovailoa did. So, again, our prayers are with him and his family, that's not as serious. We'll see if the NFL does have to go through anything, after this incident. I know this will be a major talking point all weekend long, but we will actually get to some football talk here. We've got 6 games, our pick 6 from Bet Online right here on the Locked On NFL podcast, the Friday edition with Chris Carter and your boy Q. Stay tuned. We got a bunch of key games to break down for this weekend. Back here on the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. It's Chris Carter. It's your boy QQ. Were you trying to raise yourself up to improve your height there?
No, I was trying to hit hydraulics on my chair.
Hydraulics on your chair. That's totally what it is.
West Coast dude. You know, we hit those hydros, man. We hit those switches. We just
oh my gosh, this guy is
whooping the hood, man. That was like Ice Cube hitting those switches.
I've seen Boys in the Hood. That's not what you were doing with your
That's
computer
what I was
chair.
Doing. I was switching. I was hitting the switch.
If Doughboy ever saw you pumping up your chair and making that noise, he would be looking at you like I'm looking at right
we
now.
go back like the Commodores, man. Me and O'Shea are cool, man.
Stupid. Anyways,
insane.
we got some football to break down, and of course our pick six, always brought to you by Bet Online, where you get all the odds, all the lines, all the scores available to you. But we got some key games this weekend, and I'm going to lead off with a big one here, Q, a major one. It could be a game of the week territory here. 2-1 AFC teams with two of the top quarterbacks. It's Josh Allen and the Bills at Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And this is a very interesting matchup. Both teams dealing with injuries in their secondary. Both teams trying to find out, trying to bounce back from some tough ones. The Ravens were able to bounce back last week, but there's still some concerns. They're still not the 100% Ravens that I think they were hoping they'd be. The Bills, of course, they went up against the Dolphins. They had I think it was like 100 snaps on offense that they had last week. Stephon Diggs was having full body cramps and everything. Lots of concerns there. But Q, who do you got in this game and why here?
I look at the Bills. I think they'll bounce back. You mentioned all the cramps that they were going through. I mean, they were playing in South Beach. They were playing in Miami and in September, and those day games, it's like 90-something out there, and that humidity, and like you mentioned, all the plays that they had to play, they just that wears on folks. And Miami, the Dolphins have been doing that for years, right? They've been taking advantage of that for years because that element is there. So I think the Bills will bounce back. I like what Lamar Jackson is doing, but I just don't trust the Ravens defense right now. I think that they'll get better defensively, but I just don't trust what they're doing right now. So I think that Buffalo will get this victory just because of the fact that Baltimore's defense isn't where it needs to be right now.
Well, the Bills are 3-point favorites on betonline.net right now. The over-under set at 51. Man, I'm taking the Ravens. I think that the Bills. Okay. I know that they're not in South Beach anymore. Like, they don't got to worry about that. But that does take a toll on you. And as much as the Dolphins were on a shorter week and everything coming off of that game, you saw Xavier Howard cramping up at the ear. His groin messed up at the end of the game. You saw more of them were dropping like flies. Even outside of Tua was different. That was a serious injury for something else. But I think you also saw the exhaustion from them, from the defense there, especially, and being able to finish that game. I kind of wonder if this game's close late, if the Bills don't experience some of that exhaustion. I know they've had a week to come off of that, but games like that can take a toll. I'm taking the Ravens at home. I'll go over. I think these are two talented enough offenses to score more than 51 points. I think that can happen.
I mean, it can. It definitely can, especially with the Baltimore Ravens struggling defensively. But, yeah, I'll just go under. I'm just going to go roll with the under and think that it's going to be a really close game. I think Buffalo does win by 3. I think they cover that spread, but that's just about it. So I think they'll probably go under. And side note, who doesn't hate it when they when their groin starts cramping up?
Why'd you say it like that?
Because that's how you said it. You said Xavier Howard's groin cramped up at the end.
At first, I said it was a cramp, then I corrected myself and said it was a groin injury, and I was saying like, "Oh, my bad. It wasn't a cramp. It was a groin injury."
I thought you said it was a groin cramp.
It's not. If I did, I misspoke. I apologize. You said it on purpose.
I did.
You are a silly man. All right, we have the Titans and the Colts here. On Bet Online, the over-under set at 43. I believe it's tough to read this here. I think they're saying that the Colts are 3.5 favorites. It's tough because this is a little bunched up here, and my phone is glitching at the moment. But I think they're saying the Colts are 3.5-point favorites at home here. I know they have a better record at 1-1-1, and I know the Titans are 1-2 and haven't looked great this year.
Yeah,
but. And hey, the Colts pulled off an amazing upset over the Chiefs last week. Nobody and they mama, picked the Colts to beat the Chiefs last week. But the Titans, this is going to be a battle of two really good running backs. two teams that rely on that running game. I think the Titans have more across the board to get answers in this game to be able to win it. I'll take them. And I think I'll take the under because I do think there's a lot of running in this game and not as much a lot of clock gets used, not as much clock sits around for chances for high scoring. But I'm going with Tennessee on the road in this one.
Yeah, I'm taking Tennessee as well, and I am going with the under, and I just think that it's going to be a very physical game, but low-scoring game. So I think that Tennessee got a little bit of their mojo back. They're not still right where they need to be. They're not the Tennessee Titans that they were a year ago, but I do think that they got enough to get this one done. Derrick Henry starting to get some wheels under him. Last week against the Raiders, they actually threw the ball to him as well, so if they can implement that in part of their game plan, I think that will help a lot. So I'm going to go under, but I am taking the Titans on the road.
Titans on the road with that one. That's definitely that'll be something to watch. I know AFC South football doesn't exactly get people up in the morning right now, but still,
those Jaguars do.
Those Jaguars do. That was what I was going. I was trying to do a whole segue, and then you just steal it. Like I was working on.
I'm here for you. Shout out to Tony Wiggins, man. Shout out to the Jaguars. Shout out to Locked On Jags. He actually called that victory last week over the Chargers. So shout out to him.
He did. He definitely did. And I thank him for filling in as I was covering Thursday night football there on the Steelers there with the Steelers-Browns game. But let's look at that game. 2-1 Jaguars at 3-0 Eagles. The Eagles are the favorites here, but it's a 45.5 point over/under mark. I find that interesting. I believe this is saying 6.5 point favorites to the Eagles right now. Again, it's tough to bring it up right now because we're having some issues with the website. But I do believe. I mean, they should be favored, right? The Eagles, to me, look like the better team, the much better team, the most complete team in football right now. At least most successful team in football right now. That team that they're winning the most on defense, winning the most on offense. And that team at one point was the Bills. It wasn't until last week where I think that the Bills were going to run away with this league. But the Jaguars have also impressed. They blew out the Colts 24-0. They blew out the Chargers last week. Now they go to Philadelphia where it's a tough environment. I'm sticking with the Eagles, but I'm not so sure it's 6.5 points. I might take the Jags to cover in this situation. I think the Eagles win the game outright, but I think the Jaguars will cover because I do think this game ends up being close.
This is the Doug Peterson Bowl, right? I mean,
it is the Doug Peterson Bowl. It's the revenge game.
I know. It's the Doug Peterson Bowl. So I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars will be amped up, ready to go in this game. I think he's a hell of a coach, has them lined up in a good position. I just still think they're young, right? And so, I mean, they've had a couple big-time victories in a row where they looked really impressive. I feel like the air is going to come out of their sails just a little bit. So I think that the Eagles win this game, and I think that they win probably by 10 points. I just like what Jalen Hurts is doing. I think he's second in line right now for the MVP of the league, and I know it's way too early to talk MVP, but right now I look at Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts. Those are the two guys I'm looking at. So I think that Jalen keeps this thing rolling. I've been a big fan of Jalen since he was at Alabama, when he went to Oklahoma, and now that he's in the league. And I love the fact that he's taking that next step and showing everyone, including the Eagles, that he is in fact a franchise quarterback. So I'm rolling with the Eagles, and I say that they're going to win by 10.
Eagles by 10. Okay, so he's taking Eagles and the points.
That's right.
I think that'll be fun to watch. Okay. Let's go to a game that you'll be covering, and that's the 2-1 Broncos at the 0-3 Raiders. Now, I know some people are probably thinking, Chris, why are y'all going with an 0-3 team? Like, who cares about that? Well, that's Q's team, and I'm a bit surprised that they're 0-3.
So is Q.
But to me, I know it's tough to say there are must-win games in Week 4 of the NFL season, but Q, this seems like a must-win game. You can't go 0-4 in this AFC West.
No, it feels that way. It does, and look, Denver's not that good, but they still are not that good and found a way to win 2 games.
Yeah.
Right. And the Raiders haven't found a way to win 1. It's bad times, man. It really is. And I think that they need to win this game desperately. I mean, look, they've already had a players-only meeting. They had a players-only meeting after week 3. You can't keep doing it. It's not like you can do that every 3 weeks, right? No. I mean, that's one and done. After the players-only meeting's over, if you don't get that success, it's a wrap. So, look, if they lose this game against Denver, this is why I think it's a must-win. They lose this game against Denver, they'll be 0-4 and headed to Kansas City for a Monday Night Football game. Good luck.
Yeah.
So then they're going to go into their bye week, so they could potentially go into their bye week 0-5. And I told this to Raider Nation. If they go into the bye week 0-5, the team that they look at, shut up, the team that they're looking at, the team that goes into the bye week,
I don't know who you're talking about.
It's not the team that's going to be coming out of the bye week. If they go into it 0-5, there will be changes made.
It certainly sounds like that sounds like that would make sense. It's 45.5 is the over under here.
I go under. I go under.
I'm going under too. Like, I mean, as much as I like Devontae Adams, I like Russell Wilson as players, but these offenses haven't been coherent. I'm gonna go take.
If you look at it, Chris, look across the league. For the most part, the unders have been winning anyway.
It has been, yeah.
Right now, there's more unders that are winning than ever, and the offenses, I think they're averaging 23 points a game. Like that's the number across the league. So yeah, go with the under.
That's interesting. The Raiders are 2.5-point favorites. That's it's really close. I'm going with the Raiders though. I feel like you said, it's a must-win game.
Win, right?
It's a backup against the corners game. It's a division game. You got to do it. And here's the other thing: the Broncos aren't that good of a team. If this was a backup against the corners and the Chiefs were coming to town or the Bills were coming to town, right, then I'd be like, guys, I think y'all just gonna have to take that L. But I do think that they can win this one. They've got to find a way.
Yep, got to. Simple as that. Simple as that. What else you got?
What else we got? We got Sunday Night Football, Chiefs at Buccaneers. It's Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes. We have a 45.5 points over under mark there. I'm going with the over there. I think there's going to be some scoring in this game. It's also a pick 'em. According to BetOnline, I'm looking at right now, it's a even spread, though. I guess the home team does get a 3-point edge normally, so that means the Chiefs are 3-point favorites technically, if you look at it that way in a neutral field. But I'm going with the Chiefs in a pick 'em here. I know that they lost last week to the Colts, but I think that they're mad about that. I think that they're trying to gear up, and I think the Buccaneers, there's a lot of stuff they got to clean up on offense. They got a lot of guys hurt. And I think the Chiefs, this will be their chance to kind of strike and take advantage of the moment.
Yeah, I agree. And as much as I would like to see the Chiefs take that L just because the AFC West and it make everything that much closer, I don't see it happening just because everything you just said. They took that L last week. It was a little bit of anger on the sidelines between Patrick Mahomes and Eric Bieniemy, and obviously it's not a big deal. It's just competitors out there, talking it up, and Patrick wanted to go for the end zone, and I'm not mad at that. I think he comes out and has a stellar game, so I think Kansas City beats them. But I'm going to go with the under again on this one. Again, I'm riding all the unders, man. I don't believe in the offensive scoring right now. In this time of era in the league. I just
riding all the unders. Our last pick here, Monday Night Football, 2-1 Rams at 1-2 Niners. Okay. I'm gonna give you. Have you seen the under on this game yet?
Don't care.
It's 42.5
under.
That means if both teams, they just have to score 21, 21 or more points.
Did you see San Francisco? Did you see San Francisco against Denver Sunday night?
It was 11-10. It was the first. It was the only other 11-10 game in NFL history outside of Steelers Chargers in 2008, which I watched with my own eyes. Okay, yeah, you make a good point. I'm taking the under here. You bought me. You sold me. I was just like, yo, 40. That's too low. It's the end of it. No, all these offenses stink. Plus, these are two defensively talented teams. Yes. Aaron Donald leads one. Yes. Fred Warner the both. There's too much talent that's going on both sides. But I'm going with the Rams. I think that they've been able to bounce back from that opening week loss to the Bills. They're playing a lot better. And I also think that the Niners with Jimmy G don't look too great right now. You saw that game. And granted, that was just the first week after Trey Lance's really bad, terrifying injury. But but I think the Rams are more composed. They have a better situation going on right now. And I know they're going on the road, granted, just, a little bit down in their state, but I'm still going with Los Angeles in this situation. The Rams should beat the Niners in their stadium.
They should. And it's going to be, I think, a defensive struggle. I really do. Because 49ers have a really good defense. The Rams have a really good defense. Something's got to give, right? So, I do think the Rams win. Jimmy G, for some reason, I don't know why Kyle Shanahan didn't have him ready to go in better shape than he did, knowing that he was going to be the guy. It just looks like Jimmy G didn't practice or do anything all offseason. Oh, wait, he didn't. So, it just kind of looked like he was off, right? And so I don't think that he's going to get any better within a week. So it's going to be very low scoring. I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers score, less than double digits, right? Only are held to like a touchdown or, maybe 10 points at the most. I don't think that they're going to score a whole lot. So, I got the Rams winning probably like 21-10.
Man. Not looking good for the Niners if that happens. They would fall to 1-3 in an NFC West division that has the Rams at 3-1. We'll see how all of these play out. There is our pick six right here: Bills, Ravens. We also did Titans, Colts, Jags, Eagles, Broncos, Raiders, Chiefs, Bucks, and Rams, Niners. We'll be breaking all of that down next week too, seeing how everything goes. Again, we hope to hear the best news for Tua Tagovailoa over the next couple of days. Stay tuned on the Locked On NFL podcast for all of your news updates on the NFL Monday through Friday. We also have bonus content we release on this channel, and we're also on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you watch this video on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to get all of our daily episodes. Q, let me know where they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
And real simple, on Twitter, at your boy Q254. That's all I got. That's all I am. At your boy Q254, Locked On Raiders, Locked On Bets, and Locked On NFL. How about you?
Absolutely. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, where I cover Pitt athletics there, Pitt football, Pitt basketball, all things Pitt sports there at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Also, check out both of our shows. I host Locked On Steelers. He hosts Locked On Raiders. Also, Locked On Bets. Is there any other Locked On thing that I'm forgetting to say there?
I don't think so, unless David Locke has something else for me lined up that I don't know about.
Who knows? But either way, he's Q. He's the man. He also runs the Raider Nation Radio Network over there. Check out them as they do their great work. I'm Chris Carter, host of Locked On Steelers. Thanks again for checking us out. We'll catch you again on the next Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. We'll see you there.